Hello. Today's a good day to have a good day. I'd like to tell you my story about how I've survived anaplastic thyroid cancer. I'm hoping that this will help you or someone you love who may have contacted this dreadful disease, and let them know there is hope. There is hope. Anyway, there were several doctors of mine that said they were going to publish this information on me, but they've never gotten around to it. So I decided to go ahead and make this video in hopes that it will help somebody out there, or at least give them an alternative to something that they can do in order to fight this disease and have hope. So I started with a lump in my throat in September of 2017, and within a day I couldn't even speak. And we went to a bunch of doctors, and one of the things that I would like to pass on is that there's this thing called peer-to-peer, and peer-to-peer is where the doctor gets on the phone with the insurance company and tells them about a fast-acting disease such as anaplastic thyroid cancer, and how they can speed up the process, because we wasted a lot of days waiting for the insurance to come back with authorization for this test or that test. Anyway, on November 3rd, I actually had an operation to find out what was going on there, because prior to that, the endocrinologist tried to get a sample and the needle would not go into the lump in my throat. It was too hard. So he decided to have surgery, and once he got in there, he decided not to finish up and just took a sample, sent it off, and on November 7th of 2017, the results came back that I was diagnosed with anaplastic thyroid cancer. And so the next thing that came about was on November 22nd. I went into surgery, 8.5 hours of surgery, and had this huge lump. By this time, it started out as a golf ball size. At this point, it was the size of a softball. And anyway, 8.5 hours surgery. They did this thing called radical reconstruction, where they took a portion of my pec muscle and placed it up in my throat in order to protect the jugular vein. And so there was a lot of work that was done. And at that point in time, they were telling me that I have probably 3 months to live. And that's what they tell a lot of people. And this is something I don't want you to believe. There's always hope. So anyway, I was in the hospital for about 3 days, and I had a dietitian. And the dietitian said, we told him about this thing called the ketogenic diet. Oh, no, you don't want to do that. Well, my nieces had told me about this diet, and I decided once I got out of the hospital to go on it, and it's called the ketogenic diet. And basically what it is it starves cancer of sugar. So you cut out your carbs and all sugar products and fruit and anything that turns to sugar, and it starves the cancer, and it doesn't have any way to grow. The doctor's name that has a bunch of videos on this is Dr. Agostino out of Tampa. And if you YouTube his name, it'll come up. Put, Dr. Agostino ketogenic diet, and there'll be several videos on it, and you can see information about it. So anyway, that's one of the things that doctors did. I mean, the doctors were great. They did a lot of really great stuff. But this is one of the things that nobody wanted me to do. But my nieces had heard about this, and they're both nurses, and they had told me that I should do it. And so I've done it ever since, which was over 2 years ago. So then I had, after the surgery, I had 6 weeks of radiation therapy on my neck and throat, and also on my brain, because part of the cancer had metastasized up to my brain, and I had targeted radiation there. There weren't as many of those, but there was like 3 or 4 sessions. And so, anyway, that was 6 weeks of going to Tampa from Sarasota. And my wife was fortunately able to take me and drive me all these times. Anyway, then after that I did chemotherapy here in Sarasota for 6 weeks. And meanwhile, let's see, before I started the chemotherapy, I went back to playing music performing on drums. I hadn't started back on keyboards yet, but I started occupying my mind with things other than this dreadful disease and how everybody was so negative on it. And I started making plans of things that I was going to do in the future. And the first thing that came up was the New Orleans Jazz Festival, which I had been wanting to go to for some time. And so my wife and I planned that for March, and that was our first destination or place to go to, something I planned on doing instead of dying. And so, anyway, I started the chemotherapy and was on that for 6 weeks. It was pretty dreadful, but not as bad as a lot of people. I was pretty fortunate. I never threw up or anything. But after the 6 weeks, we got back the genetic profile from the slice that was taken out of my tumor that they took out of my neck. And they did this genetic profile on how, well, this is my take on it anyway. You can look it up with doctors to see how they do it, but they compare what your cells were like before, when they were normal, and how they changed and mutated. And then they discover, they have a number for it. It's like BRAF 20, or I don't know, it's a bunch of different numbers. And so they compare that to other people that have had the same mutation and what has worked for them as far as getting some results from different medicines. Well, it turns out there was 3 medicines that had been successful to a certain degree with this mutation that I had. And the first one is called Opdivo, and it's done with immunotherapy, which is trying to build up your immune system. And anyway, I started that almost 2 years ago, and I'm still doing that. It's like we don't know exactly what has kept me alive, but that's one of the other things we did. Oh, another thing that I did starting once I got out of the hospital was I started watching, on the suggestion of my wife, this wonderful speaker by the name of Joel Osteen. And he has these wonderful messages on TV, and I guess probably at his church as well. I think you can stream it as well. And anyway, I don't belong to any particular religion, but I've always been very spiritual and know what's good and bad, and I think everybody really does. And anyway, he has great messages and doesn't push any particular type of church on you or anything like that. And I got a lot of prayers from family, and I prayed a lot myself as well. And it was very positive messages from Joel. And I still watch it probably at least 3 or 4 days a week. So that was one of the other things that I did. So over the about a year from when I had the operation, I still couldn't talk. I could barely, but it was more of a whisper. And so I went to this endocrinologist who told me about this procedure that they could do where they insert a substance into the tissue in my neck next to the
Cord.
vocal cords and pushes it together and gives you better sound. And so he said it probably lasts 3 months, and then I would have to do a 1-year substance, which was different. So I went and had that procedure done, went back in 3 months, and he said, your voice is just as good, if not better, and there's nothing else we can do for now. So it's the way you hear it now. In fact, it's probably a little bit better. I've worked on it some. I had vocal therapy, and I had some occupational therapy as well for the scar tissue in my neck. There's a lot of scar tissue. And anyway, here it is a year and 2 months later since then, and my voice is still holding up. I can't sing like I used to, but I'm working on that, and hopefully that will get back sometime. So, to summarize, the things that I did was keep a positive attitude as much as I possibly could. Keep the negative stuff out. Don't dwell on it. Think about other things. I fortunately have music, so I practice keyboards and practice drums, do performances on drums and keyboards, which I started. I tell you, I did not feel good to go and perform, and before I'd leave to go 1 month after my surgery, it's like, I don't feel like going. But once I got there, took my mind off of it, I was fine. In fact, I was better by the end of the night than I was at the beginning of the night. So, positive attitude, ketogenic diet, I think was very, very positive in this.
Devo.
The prayers, the people, all the doctors.
Devo.
The Opdivo, which is the immunotherapy that I still do, and was provided for me by the Schwab company at no cost due to my financial situation. So you may qualify for that. Anyway, I hope this is helpful, and that I wish you the best. God bless. Today's a good day to have a good day.